I'll make them.
Do you have children who are out of control? Well, if so, we got just the thing for you. Thomas Gordon has made several contributions to discipline. He urges teachers to strive for cooperation from students while avoiding power, punishment, praise, and reward. He created a graphic device called the behavior window. Related to the behavior window, Gordon devised a series of skills for teachers to implement as appropriate. Gordon also pushes for participative classroom management, which includes both the teacher and student sharing in the planning and decision making.
The behavior window allows the teacher to visualize situations and student behaviors so that they can determine whether the problem exists, who owns it, and which skills should be applied to handle the situation. The behaviors at the top of the behavior window are acceptable to the teacher but are troublesome to the students. The students' needs are not being met, but there are no effects on the teacher. Behaviors in the middle section are behaviors that are problem-free. Here, the student and teacher work together pleasantly.
Finally, behaviors found in the bottom section of the behavior window are unacceptable to the teacher. The behavior window allows teachers to better understand problem ownership. By understanding the behavior window and correctly identifying problem ownership, teachers increase the likelihood of having effective interactions with students. There are 3 different skill clusters. These skills apply not only to problem behaviors, but ongoing communication and interactions. When teachers own the problem, confrontive skills are used. In this particular skill cluster, teachers confront the misbehavior in a positive, cooperative manner. The skills that comprise this skill cluster include modifying the environment, sending iMessages, shifting gears, and using a no-loose method of conflict resolution. Modifying the environment includes enriching it or limiting distractions. The classroom can be enriched with learning centers, colorful posters, students' murals, and displays on certain topics. If these are too distracting, areas that do not have displays but instead study corrals can help students focus. Music is also another great technique that teachers can do during certain activities. Areas that students can study independently or in groups should be incorporated in the classroom. By setting up supplies at the student's desk, there will be less student movement in the classroom. Instead of scolding students, teachers should express their feelings through iMessages. iMessages communicate 3 things: the behavior that is presenting the problem for the teacher, what the teacher is feeling about the behavior, and why the behavior is causing a problem. iMessages should describe situations and teachers' feelings. A confrontive iMessage is used to ask students to help and suggestions towards the problem. Some iMessages may cause students to become defensive. If this happens, teachers should shift gears, which means they should listen sensitively to the resistance and change from sending an assertive posture to a listening and understanding posture. In this particular skill, students feel their needs are being considered and that the teacher understands how they feel. In a no-loose method, teachers diffuse the situation and bring about a solution acceptable to everyone. In this approach, both sides are able to find a mutually acceptable solution to their disagreement.
Hi, I'm a 4-year teacher of 3rd grade. I've always struggled with my classroom management. When I purchased the Discipline as Self-Control Handbook and began implementing it in my classroom management, I was amazed about how much smoother my day went. The students are learning. There are less class disruptions, and both the students and me respect one another. Now, in Cluster 1, confrontive skills have some wonderful techniques to use within the classroom. There are 4 skills within this cluster, and they are all something that all teachers should want to incorporate in their classroom. I modified my classroom by cleaning up the clutter and taking down unnecessary posters. I now have an organized and clutter-free classroom, and when the students are working quietly, I like to play soft music for them. I have noticed that since I have modified my classroom environment, my students enjoy being in the classroom and are engaged during the day. I believe that by using iMessages with my students, this has vastly improved both their response and my response to their behavior. Before, I was just yelling and trying to get them to behave. I noticed that the behavior would be an ongoing thing. With iMessages, I can better understand why there's a problem, and we're able to address the problem together and come up with a solution to the problem so it doesn't arise again. By addressing the problem privately, my students and I respect one another. Once I changed my attitude to listening and understanding, it was so much easier to communicate with my students. The students feel that their needs are being considered. This is a no-loss method. Once I diffused the situation with my students' help, I was able to find a mutual solution, and now my classroom is somewhere where I want to be.
In the second skill cluster, helping skills, which is located in the top section of the behavior window, the student owns the problem. Thomas Gordon's helping skills includes listening skills and avoiding communication roadblocks with the students. When a student voices a problem they may be having, the teacher should listen carefully, but they should not try to solve the student's problems. Instead of helping the student to solve the problem, the teacher should use 4 listening skills: passive listening, acknowledgement responses, door openers, and active listening. Passive listening, which is when the teacher does nothing more than silently and attentively listening. Acknowledgement responses is when the teacher periodically uses nonverbal and verbal signs of communication, such as a nod or an uh-huh. Door openers is when the teacher invites the student to talk openly about whatever may be bothering them, and that would look something like, "Would you like to talk about it?" The teacher should also use active listening, which is when the teacher mirrors back to the student what the student is saying, which confirms to the student that the teacher has been listening and understands. When teachers try to talk to students, sometimes they put up roadblocks, and that makes the students not want to talk. Roadblocks to avoid would be giving orders, warnings, preaching, name-calling, analyzing, praising, reassuring, questioning, and withdrawing. If you find yourself using any of these, the conversation may be over with your student, so you might need to start over.
My classroom was complete chaos before I found out about Thomas Gordon's discipline model. Now in my classroom, I let the student own the problem and we focus on listening skills and eliminating roadblocks. Because of this, I've built better relationships with my students through listening skills and avoiding conversation roadblocks. When a student voices their problems or concerns, I listen carefully, but I do not attempt to solve their problems. Instead of that, I use 4 listening skills that work miracles. I use passive listening and acknowledgement responses so that the student knows that I'm listening to them. I also use active listening, which lets the student know that I understand what they have been saying. I'm so thankful for Thomas Gordon Skill Cluster, and I can't imagine my life without them.
Do your students act like this? Preventive skills are used to forestall future problems for teacher or students. They include rule setting, preventive iMessages, and participative problem solving and decision making. This skill cluster is used in connection with the middle section of the behavior window, which indicates no problems. Specific preventive skills addressed by Gordon include 1. Preventive iMessages, 2. Collaborative rule setting, and 3. Participative classroom management, all of which contribute to maintaining a harmonious relationship within the classroom. In short, confrontive skills help teachers meet their own needs. Helping skills assist students in meeting their needs, and preventive skills help ensure future satisfaction for both teacher and student. Let us turn now to the relationship between the 3 sections of the behavior window and their pertinent skill clusters. These 3 preventive skills contribute to maintaining harmonious relationships within the classroom. Preventive iMessages, which influence students' future actions and thus help prevent problems. Collaborative rule setting, which is similar to the no-lose method of conflict resolution in that students and teachers both win because everyone's needs receive attention. Participative classroom management, which is when teachers and students make joint decisions based around class rules, room arrangement, seating, and preferred activities. As part of the participative management, Gordon recommends a process of problem solving through which teachers show students how to solve problems and make good decisions. The steps in the problem solving process are as follows. Step 1, identify and define the problem or situation. Step 2, generate alternatives. Step 3, evaluate the alternative suggestion. Step 4, make the decision. Step 5, implement the solution or decision. And step 6, conduct a follow-up evaluation.
I have been using Thomas Gordon's preventive skills for the last 4 years of my 10-year teaching career, and the results I've seen due to this change in philosophy has been extremely beneficial. Before I used this new method as a discipline model, my students' behavior was erratic. There was consistent misbehavior, a loss of interest in subject matter concepts, and continual arguments between students. I am so grateful to have discovered and purchased this program because my teaching career has been turned around by the utilization of preventive skills.
The ultimate goal of this skill cluster is to have your students behave in this manner. With the application of the preventive skill cluster of the behavior window, a student's behavior does not cause a problem for either student or teacher.
Skill Cluster 1, or Confrontive Skills, is the bottom section of the behavior window. In this skill cluster, the teacher owns the problem.
Skill Cluster 2, Helping Skills, applies to the top section of the behavior window. In this skill cluster, the student owns the problem.
For Skill Cluster 3, Preventive Skills, this applies to and is used to in connection with the middle section of the behavior window. In this skill cluster, no problem exists. If you are having trouble getting your class to behave, we have just the thing for you.
You can get all 3 of these skill clusters for 3 easy payments of $49.99.
Call 1-800-867-5309 now to get your copy of these 3 books detailing Thomas Gordon's discipline and self-control.